I will start this with the printer's son, or the printer, and Rafelson. Rafelson intuitively knew that the minus lens is bad for you if you're 20/50. And very briefly, he used the plus lens on the kid, and the eye does respond to a plus. I should say change its refractive state from a negative value to positive value. Very slow process. But the printer did not know what was going on, so naturally he rejected it. So that is ignorance. Intelligent person, yes, a lot of intelligent person, but ignorance of fundamental scientific truth. So our arguments are not with anyone medical, it's with a myth, misconception, and the habit of people who think that 2020 indicates you won't get back into it in the next year or two or three. It's the blindness of science that condemns us, all of us. So this is from John F. Kennedy. And he says, and I agree with it, the great enemy of truth is very often not the lie, deliberate, contrived, and dishonest, but the myth. And that is the myth. The myth is that the eye is a camera, and all you have to do is draw a camera and draw rays of light through a camera, and you're a scientist. You know, you're a genius, you're a scientist, you know everything. And then you know that prevention won't work. Prevention won't work whatever you do. Prevention work won't work if you're 20/40 or 20/50. So you're not going to do it because you don't like the risk, because you don't understand something very deep. You don't understand. And that was also the printer. So after 120 years, nothing has changed because the myth prevails. I take personal responsibility for my own bad visual habits as a child. I regret it deeply, but still I don't blame. Blame is not in me. I want scientists, I want engineering, and I want an honest choice when the honest choice actually means something. It doesn't mean anything if you're -8 diopters and you can't get out of it. It means it was a tragedy. It was a myth. And you're the one who suffers from it, from your own bad habits. So I don't deny things. Only Rupa Wong are working with their children when they have 20/20. And you can't even call that medicine because they're not sick. They have no problem at all. They have 20/20. And yet they're conducting prevention for their 20/20 children, positive refractive state, because they know what will happen if they don't do that. And it's the old myth again. You don't want to do that because you know better. You know it's wrong to wear a plus for prevention when you're 20/30 or 20/40 because you know it won't work. And you're a victim of that myth again. No, I don't blame anyone medical, even Lance, the eye slicer. I don't blame him because of the ignorance of the public, intelligent people who are ignorant of science. Now, how you take that has got to be in you. I don't advocate recovery much beyond 20/40. In fact, I would agree to a reasonable compromise. Always pass the DMV on your Snellen. For me, wearing a plus is basically as long as I'm doing close work. I just read this with no glasses. I have 20/20. My refractive range is from blur to blur, about 2.5 diopters. It's amazing. I never expected that. I would be happy just to have 20/40 and naked eye and take care of it myself. So I was very lucky, and that came from accepting Jacob Rafelson and working on the myth that all eyes are cameras that somehow aren't working right, when in fact they are all dynamic systems starting at birth, controlling their refractive state to their average of accommodation. Friends, that's a control system. That is science. That's engineering. There's not one word of defect or anything against medicine in what I just said. All you have to do is stop being the intelligent printer who is ignorant of science. Now, I post Francis Young data on the PLOS. And where it's intelligently used, it could result in prevention, the same as Jeff and Rupa Wong, except you would have to make the measurements yourself and be a good engineer, scientist. I can't make you do that. One of my relatives into athletics, running triathlon. I don't ask him to keep his weight at a reasonable level. I don't have to tell him to do that. He knows how to do it, and he's doing it. That's what I mean by intelligence, but using your intelligence to keep your weight at a reasonable weight, because I can't do it for him. Maybe his relatives go up to 300 or 400 pounds. I don't know. It's not them. But you can control your weight. And in the same way, in a different way, intelligent science, accepting the fact that prevention's wise and necessary when you're 2050 or 2060. You could at least maintain passing the DMV as you grow up through the school years. And that means a little extra you have to measure yourself. So, yes, this came from Wits and Wisdom. And my experience with Rafelson, and I realized that prevention is impossible for an optometrist because of this myth. And they don't lie, they don't cheat, they do all of this, but they're a myth. And their thinking is a myth. And the consequences are very serious and permanent once you start wearing that minus lens. But I can't put scientific intelligence in you. You have to figure that out for yourself. I could see a program where pilots, engineers, could choose to wear the PLOS and make their own measurements as I make them, and slowly go from minus a half diopter to plus a half diopter, and keep it that way during the school years. But that's intelligence in science. It is not something that's medical. Matter of fact, all measurements that I make are not medical. It's only when you convert a negative refractive state into a medical problem that you have a myth. Still, it takes a great deal of personal boldness to understand the type of choice you have. And I can't do it for you. And for my relatives, I apologize for getting them involved, but they are worth it. And it was all up to them. So I'll send this to my friends and relatives and fellow engineers. I have friends who are engineers talking about it. They have their own opinions. And sometimes they express their opinion in various ways about a myth. Thanks for listening, and learn for the future. Prevention will be in our future because it's not in our past and it's not now. Thank you.